Bill Deverell, our guest, his newest book, I'll See You in My Dreams, is fifth in the Archer Beecham series. He's written 17 so far.
I think that's about right.
Something like that.
Yeah.
This is 17.
You need 3 hands to count them,
yeah. That's good. And you've won a lot of prizes and a lot of honors and a lot of awards, impressive awards.
Yes, I am very, the first of the Arthur Beecham series won the Dashiell Hammett, which that's for literary excellence in crime writing in North America. So I was very proud of that, and won a couple of Arthur Ellis Awards for Best Crime Novel.
Right.
So yeah, this kind of writing a series as I am now is a little different for me. I think my first 10 books were just what they call standalones with different characters, and finally I pulled Arthur out from an old book called The Dance of Shiva, where he was an alcoholic lawyer, and I think you might have interviewed me for that one some years ago. And I just needed a kind of recovering alcoholic for a character, and decided here, this guy looks like, I've got a whole library of great characters.
How great. Well, and you spell it Beauchamp, but it's pronounced Beecham, just to trick us.
Well, that's the kind of, it's an anglicized word. In England, if your name is spelled B-E-A-U-C-H-A-M-P, it's Beecham.
Right, so back to your heroes of the court. Men, women you admire in the court. In the past, I asked you why.
Well, like Branca, Hugh McGivern was another one too, and I remember Larry Hill, who was whose alcohol-fueled orations in the courtroom were absolutely stirring. The late Larry Hill, and I was in awe of these guys when I was a young lawyer. I was what, 24, 25-year-old lawyer, sitting there watching them, and I remember Angela congratulating me one time for a defense I put in, and
in the courtroom, in front of everybody.
Yeah, well, in front of friends.
Oh, in front of friends.
And Hugh McGivern too, and I thought, God, I just sailed out of there, you know.
I bet. Well, nothing worse than poorly prepared counsel, I'm sure. And if you have a good judge who runs the court well, you know they pretty much get you on track.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, some of them. I mean, I think my first case as a lawyer in Vancouver was in front of the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, and I got, I don't know, my watch wasn't working. I ended up there half an hour late, and he was very, very patient with me and didn't chide me too much, and there was a kind of a legal aid case, a drug trafficking case, and I was just mortified. And then it was adjourned for re-argument a week later, and again I was late. I don't know what happened to me, but I looked at my watch, oh God! Yeah. I went screaming down the street in my robes, looking for a taxi to get me from, Gastown or near there, down to the courthouse, and again, he was very kind. So thank God for kind judges.
And you at your prepared best with your robes flying out and not sure where you're going to start, or did you know? Defending murderers, the keys to that, how does it work? Do they tell you, defense, you as their lawyer, the truth? Do you insist on that? What's the drill? The
drill is not to ask. You don't want to know the truth right away. It can well compromise a lawyer's defense. What you want to do is sit down with your client and say, just hold off until I get all the facts from the prosecutor's office, the particulars as they're known, and then we'll discuss and get your version. But I want to know, and then I want to tell you before we get too much detail what the defenses are that are open to you. Was it, you were too drunk to know what you were doing, or was there a kind of provocation, or was there a self-defense sort of thing? And then you let him tell the story. You want to make sure that he doesn't compromise you as the lawyer by blurting out "yeah, I'm guilty" right away, because then you are not able to put him on the witness stand.
I see. So first question is not, did you do it?
Yeah, it's not, never did you do it.
Never did you do it. Just let's put the case together, all of that, get the facts. But Have you had cases, and I know you've written about cases where you're on the stand and it comes out and there's something you did not know as defense? You just did not know. Surprise.
I've had cases like that, or cases in which my client on the witness stand suddenly kind of suffers a shock syndrome during cross-examination and looks guilty as hell, despite however much you prepare him or her. But usually it's I've prosecuted too murder cases, because they used to hire an experienced defense lawyer to do the major murder cases in this province. I don't know, they may still do that.
Right.
And I've had some cases in which I've seen the defense lawyer shocked because of what was revealed in a very, very close cross-examination.
And what have you learned about human nature dealing with criminals? A murderer, an abuser, a thief?
Well, what I have learned is, I think the media kind of blows up to a far greater extent than necessary criminal cases. 99% of the criminal cases, and I see the Harper government planning all these extra jails and increased sentencing for minor crimes. A terrible, terrible mistake. 99% of the people who go through the system either plead guilty, or they're minor offenses, whether they be, reckless driving or possession of a little bit of pot or whatever. The major cases, which I guess so infuriate our federal justice minister, are the ones that make the headlines. The terrible, brutal murders and rapes.
Right.
Very, very, very rare, those things, and yet they seem to want to stuff our jails with all sorts of people who are totally reformable, or certainly not a menace to society.
No, and the war on drugs is clearly not working.
No, it never has.
Never has. Do you stand on one side or the other of legalization of drugs, of decriminalization of drugs?
I have
position?
stood for legalization of drugs since I was a young lawyer in the 60s. And I remember helping organize groups for the legalization of marijuana in particular. But I happen to think that all drugs should be legal, controlled, yeah. But I think there's so much waste. We bulk up our police forces, our jail systems by putting people, and all criminalization does is increase crime. You get hookers who are addicted, and they're only out there on the street because they're addicted. And if they were getting that kind of support, people who break into your homes are doing it. I think 80% of the time, because they're in need of some money to pay for drugs.
And we're looking at sex trade workers now, and we always have, and prostitution and all of that, and the debate rages about legalization or not. As you know, some say purely and clearly prostitution is slavery. Others say my right to be a sex trade worker if I want to.
Well, I'm with the latter. That's their right. It's unfortunate some of them are almost compelled into it because of the need to support a drug habit. But those who go into it cleanly, just want it and enjoy it, well, it's a job.
It's a free world. It's true, and yet it's such a complicated subject. We'll do that another day, I think. Let's get back to I'll See You in My Dreams. Why the title?
Well, it's you'll remember it's the line from Good Night, Irene. Good night, Irene, I'll see you in my dreams. And there's a recurring motif throughout the book, as there are in other Arthur Beecham books. He dreams a lot, and in the course of his dreams, he is seeing things that ultimately predict the surprise ending, the twist of the final ultimate twist in the last 10 pages of the book, which imagine you'll reach by tonight. If you,
I will, yes.
yeah.
I plan to do nothing else but
All right.
read about Crazy Krasnick and the
Yeah.
rest of your characters. What about the characters? Making up names, because you have the best names for characters. Harvey Frinkle.
Yeah, he's the divorce lawyer. He's a kind of corrupt divorce lawyer who handled Ophelia's divorce. She's the love interest for Arthur, and she's bitter about him, and he's a very crass individual, and Arthur gets in trouble with Ophelia when she sees them drinking together at a bar and whispering to each other.
Exactly, and on it goes, and he's jealous, so there's lots of romance, well, almost romance in here. Anyone teach you how to write, or did you just start?
Well, as a journalist, you learn some basics, like, you know, how to put the subject before the verb, to write plainly and cleanly, and so that people can comprehend what you're saying. So I have had, it's a different structure, of course. The newsworthy item comes at top, and this is kind of the reverse. But I think it's important to be able to write in such a way that people have no difficulty grasping what you're saying, and then you build on top of that.
Sure, like Elmore Leonard.
Yeah.
He writes like that.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
pick it up and you're not confused.
Yeah, that's right.
And you don't have to go back to the beginning, unlike others I know.
Yeah.
Like when I read Ondaatje, I love his work, Skin of the Lion, all of that, but I always have to go back to page 1 to say, who was that character? You know, maybe I'm just not bright enough. Who knows?
Well, all right.
Nice to see you.
Likewise, Fanny.
Thank you. William Deverell, Bill Deverell, I'll see you in my dreams, an Arthur Beecham novel.